Check course conference this week.
It is 7 o'clock. It is time to get the Ferrisburg City Council meeting called to order for Monday, March 17th, 2025. Craig, could you call roll, please?
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
Councilmember Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilmember Sias,
Yes.
Councilmember Murdoch,
Yes.
Councilmember Kate,
Yes.
Councilmember DeWitt.
Here.
Councilmember Sterling.
Here. Thank you so much. It's always great to see all the city council members here, as they always are. Wonderful thing. Could we all rise for the invocation by Sarah Bugard from Gateway Church? Afterwards, we're followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Father God, we just come before you. We thank you for this opportunity to meet and to discuss things for the city. And I just ask that you would bring wisdom and clarity on certain issues. And Lord, I pray that you would just bless this time and bless the city in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now is the time for public comment. This time on the agenda is for any citizen to direct brief comments or questions to the city council. Time for public comments will be given when an agenda item is discussed. If you have a comment or question, citizens may wish to make public comment on agenda items. All right, let me rephrase that again. If you have a comment or question, citizens who wish to make a public comment on agenda items are asked to stand against the wall by the podium to ensure visibility to be recognized. And after being recognized by the mayor, please give your name and your address of residency for the record and proceed with your comment or questions. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment tonight?
Good evening, Oliver Champagne, 540 D Avenue, Grand Haven. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Larabells behind me in regards to Beaglesman's. I find it frustrating when a city is attempting to put rules on someone providing community building. A free produce stand strengthens neighborhood connections and starts to build trust, which a lot of people have lost trust in even their own neighbors, not even knowing their names. They allow for opportunities for conversation, friendships, and a stronger sense of community. The Larabells themselves providing seeds, teaching people how to grow their own food as well. Some of the people they're helping struggle to get access to fresh, healthy food. By providing it, they provide a no-cost, community-driven solution to that for families in this community. In fact, they reduce food waste because they're sharing their surplus produce that they can't eat themselves with those who need it. And let me mention, they're doing it for no financial gain. There's no money involved. It's just neighbors sharing what they grow. Acts of generosity shouldn't require permits. They should never. If government is doing that, they have severely overreached whatever role they think they should have in a society. Permits create unnecessary obstacles for people just trying to do good. And adding a bureaucracy into it is going to discourage simple acts of community support. So I wonder, what do we want? Do we want people to invest in their community to help their neighbors out? Or do we want to find little ways to discourage it completely? Seriously. And I understand the idea of health and safety, and small free produce stands, though, aren't the same as commercial food sales at all. And concerns could easily be addressed with simple practices like keeping produce off the ground, which they're already doing, and ensuring the area stays tidy, which once again, they're already doing. Now, Ferrisburg has the chance to be a leader in supporting grassroots community initiatives. I wish Grand Haven was doing more things like this. I mentioned that I'm running for city council in Grand Haven, actually, to represent Ryan Cummins' partial 2-year term. He left to be a city manager in Saugatuck. And this is my first time ever speaking at Ferrysburg City Council. I'm glad to be here. The last time I tried to attend, it was, I don't know what happened, but it wasn't communicated super well. I'd like to say that there wasn't going to be a meeting. And I hope in the future that's improved, because I heard that's not the first time something like that's happened with a canceled meeting here. But I want to engage with Ferrysburg, and I continue to do so in the future, but I want to let you guys know that you have the chance right now to be a leader in supporting grassroots community initiatives, which are important. And allowing free produce sharing shows the city values kindness and empowers residents to care for each other, which we should want to do. Now, I understand, once again, the need for health and safety, but I believe we should consider voluntary registration or basic guidelines instead of requiring permits. I think it balances safety and freedom without creating unnecessary barriers from people trying to do a community good for people that are doing a community good. And the majority of people I've spoken to that live in this city are very happy with what they do for the community. And I don't even live here, and they make me feel more welcome in this city too. So, thank you.
Any other public comment tonight? Tim?
Good evening. Thank you. Timothy O'Donnell, 540 Ferry Street. A couple items. I agree with what the last gentleman stated. For many years, there have been produce stands. There have been kids with little lemonade stands selling fruit, vegetables, lemonade. There's a point for government intervention, but I don't think governing those stands is a part of the city council's purview. Again, a lot of got to tread lightly on government intervention. I propose less instead of more government intervention. I recently was reading the agenda, and I saw about having to stand against the wall. That I don't understand. For many years, raising your hand, waiting to be recognized has worked. I also believe that forcing somebody to stand against the wall in order to be recognized could be a violation of the ADA. People have problems standing. If they had to stand over there for 20 minutes, some people can't do that. And that could restrict the interaction between the public and the city council. Tonight, you're going to be looking at the ethics ordinance. I was here when the ethics ordinance was brought into effect. Some of the questions still should be raised. One is who checks and does the reviews. Having the city attorney look at the reviews or at the complaints and having to decide whether he's going to be having to defend the person that the complaint is against. I think that's a gross conflict of interest. Somebody that should be an outside independent source that looks at the complaints. Charging for it? No. Again, government overreach. It's when complaints were filed earlier, nobody said anything. But when complaints were filed against some of the current administration, all of a sudden they want to charge and try and discourage people from filing for complaints. Paperwork, I fully support that we have no charges for anything other than water and sewage rates. We don't charge for fire service, and we don't charge for public works, and we shouldn't charge for anything else because of taxpayer money.
That's 3 minutes.
Okay.
Any other public comment this evening? Oh, we have one? Thank you. Okay.
good evening, Mayor and City Council. Josh Bruger, your neighborhood, let's see, how do I say that? Your friendly neighborhood commissioner? Not sure how superheroes say that, but at any rate, hey, this evening I'm just here to observe, to check in and visit. Sometime in April or early May, I'll be back. We will have been in office for about 100 days. I figure at that time I'll be able to give you a good update on what we've accomplished. Hopefully we've accomplished a few things at the county level, and I'll be happy to report back then. So tonight, I'm just here to listen, wanted to say hello, so thank you.
Thank you for coming. Any other public comment this evening? Seeing none, let's move on. Agenda item consideration, number 6, consideration for approval of the consent agenda. 6A, approve the March 3rd, 2025 City Council minutes as printed. 6B, approve the bills memo in the amount of $86,140.79. 6C, approve an agreement between the city and Grand Haven Area Public School District regarding the collection of the district's property taxes for the calendar year 2025. 6D, adopt a resolution approving a request by the Grand Haven Area Public Schools for the city to collect all of the school's 2025 property taxes during the city's 2025 summer tax collection period. And a request by the Ottawa Area ISD for the city to collect all of the district's 2025 property taxes during the city's 2025 summer tax collection period. 6E, adopt a resolution in support of the Spring Lake Township, Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant application. 6F, adopt a resolution adopting the 2025 master plan. 6G, approve the earned sick time policy. 6H is approve an amendment to the personnel manual to include the earned sick time policy. Take a motion, please.
So moved.
Support.
Do you have any questions?
Just a your comment? Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
You all remember that I was against items C and D last meeting. I have since been schooled on it, pardon the pun, and I understand what's all behind it. Actually, it's being part of our agenda.
Your Honor, I'd like to move 6A, the resolution for Spring Lake Township Natural Resource Trust Fund application, the 7-1A. I think we should rule on that separately.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? I have a question. Craig, could you, seeing none?
Does his motion have to have support?
There's motion support. Approve the
My
consent
motion-
agenda.
My motion is to remove the H from the consent agenda and put it on new business as 1A.
That after what was made?
No, you're after E. You're after E.
The motion was, the first motion was to approve the consent agenda after it was read.
Right, then I made a motion to remove E from the consent agenda and put it as 1A, 7-1A.
We should vote on the first motion first, though.
We can't amend the motion?
You can amend it if someone,
He needs to amend.
I would like to amend my motion of support to include removing 6E to 7-1A.
I'll support.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So is our vote on to move this right now to a separate item, or are we considering also the approval of the consent agenda along with moving it?
approving the consent agenda with the removal of item E.
Okay.
And moving it to 7-1A.
Okay.
Correct? Okay. Greg, I had a question, and that is on 7 or 6G and H about the earned sick time policy. Could you explain to us what's going on?
Right, this was a new law that was enacted effective February 21st of 2025. Every employee that works 30 hours will earn 1 hour of sick time leave. It's mandatory. So basically it will affect part-time help. It won't affect city employees so much because our benefit plan is more generous. But for anybody that works part-time can earn 1 hour for every 30 hours worked. A firefighter, if they work 30 hours, they'll earn 1 hour sick time. If an election worker works 30 hours, they'll earn 1 hour sick time. They can only use sick time on a regular scheduled shift. So as the election worker and the firefighter does not have a regular shift, they would not earn, you'd be able to use their sick time. But the city will accrue it all in case one of these employees someday become full-time with the city.
This is to make us compliant with recent state law. Is that right?
Correct.
Any other concerns? Nope, seeing none. Craig, could you call roll, please?
Councilmember Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilmember Sias,
Yes.
Councilmember Murdoch,
Yes.
Councilmember Kate,
Yes.
Councilmember DeWitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
motion passed.
Very good. Moving on to new business, 7A, discussion and take action if appropriate to accept the community energy plan.
Connor,
Yes.
you skipped over 1A.
Oh, that goes first. Is that correct? Okay, let's go on to 7-1A then. That is to adopt a resolution of support for the Spring Lake Township Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant application. Craig, could you fill us in on this?
Yes, Spring Lake Township is applying for a grant to purchase some property on Spring Lake across the country club. They want to get the grant and put a little park in there. So they're applying for a grant. This would be a letter of support more or less for the grant application to the state.
Your Honor, I'd
Yes.
make a motion that we approve it.
I'll support.
Mike, did you have anything else to discuss in regards to it, or you just wanted to have it as a separate
Well, I
vote?
wanted it as a separate item, just to reinforce to Spring Lake Township. They've always supported us in our grant applications. I just wanted to make sure that they understood that we take it seriously to support their grant applications.
Any other further discussion? Jerry?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Craig, do you know if this property is for sale by a private citizen and they're purchasing it? It's not eminent domain or anything of that nature, right? Correct?
That's my understanding, yes, a purchase from private party.
Okay, and it is for sale on
Correct.
the market. Okay.
Okay, anything else? Craig, could you call roll, please?
Councilmember Sias,
Yes.
Councilmember Murdoch,
Yes.
Councilmember Kate,
Yes.
Councilmember DeWitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Sterling,
Yes.
Councilmember Montgomery,
Yes.
Mayor Carlson,
Yes,
motion passed.
very good. Moving on to 7A now. Discussion to take action if appropriate to accept the community energy plan. Craig, you want to fill us in on this one?
This is something that the city council approved participating in probably about 18 months ago. Representatives from each community got together in the BLP service area and came up with some ideas of what that can be done to reduce energy consumption in the city, in the village and communities. And some of the things that the Board Light and Power has done already to reduce the energy consumption and go green. And so plans have been worked at for 18 months. The Planning Commission held a review of it early last fall or late last fall, and they made a recommendation to City Council to approve the plan. We have the chairman of the committee here, Gary Post, if you might have a few words to share with us.
Jerry?
Gary Post, 18827 North Shore Drive. Mayor and council, I was appointed by this council to represent Ferrisburgh on the steering committee, and it's been a privilege to also chair that commission for most of the time it's been working. We've had a lot of meetings and a lot of good discussion, and as part of your packet tonight, because some of these documents get pretty long-winded, I tried to highlight a few items and basically suggest that what we're hoping to do next is after, if you do grant a statement of support tonight, we're looking for similar statements from the city of Grand Haven and Grand Haven Township, and then the plan is to try to file a grant to get a person to work full-time or part-time to kind of carry the ball going forward to try to implement some of these savings. And a typical point is leaky buildings that leak a lot of energy. And it's in every community. We have older homes in substandard conditions, and we're trying to work closely with the Board of Light and Power that has very similar goals, but framed slightly differently. And members of the Board of Light and Power have also made presentations before you. And I am available for any questions you might have, and also Ryan Cotton from the Grand Haven Energy and Sustainability and the steering committee is also here tonight.
Ryan, Brian, do you have anything to add? Would love to hear, come on up if you want to say anything.
Only to underscore what Gary said and to thank you for your participation in this regional effort to make our region as good as it can be and reduce costs for your citizens, as well as improve the environment for generations to come. I think Ferrysburg, the last thing I'll say is to be congratulated on much of what you have already done. I think you're the only community that purchases solar power through the Board of Light and Power. I do it as an individual, many others do, but as a community governmental institution, that's very respectable, remarkable, and I, for one, appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
And we have solar panels on the roof here that City Council put up, what, 4 or 5 years ago now? 6 years ago? Long. Yes, Mr. DeWitt.
Gary, could you come back up, please?
Hey, before we go further, Mike, can I just make a motion to approve it? So we have a motion.
I support. Okay, now we've got the official out of the way. This is not going to mandate that any of our senior citizens have to do anything.
No, that's correct.
It's just an advisory to them, and there'll probably be funds available to help them. That's our hope.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. The other thing I got here is collaborate on food waste reduction. Develop food waste infrastructure. That's coming up in a little bit as far as fruit stands or vegetable stands, correct?
Well,
So
I think
you're kind of going two different directions here. That's all I got.
It might not be obvious at first blush why reducing food waste is even part of the agenda, but I will say it takes a lot of energy to get the food on our tables, and I just came back from a ski trip, and you're at a ski resort, and you see tables and tables covered with French fries, and it's kind of sad to see so much food going to waste. And part of the thinking, Councilman, is that we're trying to increase awareness to reduce food waste and take home your leftovers, all of those kinds of things that maybe sometimes are stressed in home ec classes.
Thank you.
The plan does cover also retrofits for existing homes for people that want to tighten up their homes, correct?
Exactly.
Pardon me?
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
So I really like it. Obviously, I've sort of touched base with you several times throughout this process. I like the idea of, as a government, adopting local clean energy policies. When you talk about sealing buildings, are you looking at grants to do that, or are you looking at on homes?
All of the above. We're hoping that different programs may work for different people, whether it's an individual or a business. And the state of Michigan has some grants. Utilities have sometimes do on-bill finance as an option. It doesn't have to be one program for everybody. We're hoping that if we are able to hire a community energy advisor to kind of help people understand what options are out there, we might get the most homes retrofitted.
So the idea is that person would be able to guide citizens through that process?
Yes.
And would this be open to BLP customers only or BLP and consumers?
I think both.
Okay. So yeah, half Ferrisburg is consumers, so I make sure. I saw that your one of your goals is to make the Northwest Ottawa region 100% renewable power by 2050.
Goals exist to, you strive for them. And
I just didn't know if that was attainable.
I don't know if it's attainable either, Councilman. It's we're part of the way we have structured the plan is to have 3 different graphs, sort of good, better, and best, and it's just a helpful way to think about this. And I think it's framed as business as usual. We do nothing, or we try to do better, and we also try to be humble because so much of the technology in these fields is changing all the time. You know, it will be easier to get there than we think, but I'm hearing and I'm trying to repeat the sense of caution, and
Sure.
We'll see.
Yeah, no, it's good to have a true north. That target, is that based on BLP producing its own renewable power or buying renewable power from co-op grid?
Definitely both. Definitely buying renewable power throughout the state and maybe beyond the state.
Okay, and will we be looking at potential carbon offsets from that renewable power and generation of carbon and production of that renewable power?
I can't speak to carbon offsets
Okay.
specifically.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm excited for it. And thanks for all you do with the committee. I know you do a lot.
Thank you. And
Mark?
Yes.
Did you have any? Another question. When we adopt this, any grants or funds from state or feds become available, can you make sure that our citizens are notified that we can put in our newsletter? That how, you know, that there are funds available for energy insulation, windows, furnace, whatever.
yes,
You make sure we get that?
yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any concerns or?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Go ahead.
Gary, thank a lot of work, and I appreciate you paring it down. When I first saw the documents, and I said, "Oh man, this is like 140 pages long." This helps. Under the heading of, you didn't put page numbers on here. Shame on you. Overview of the community energy plan. You talk about cost-effective advancements in distribution and utility-scale clean energy technologies such as solar. I got a couple concerns about that. One is that we live in a part of the country where we get sun about 50% of the year, give or take. I don't think there's enough to make it solar happen as it needs to. And we still, I don't think anybody's come up with a way to recycle solar panels. They are producing, as last I heard, unrecyclable materials that we don't know what we're going to do with them when they wear out, and they will wear out. They don't last forever. So I hope that's being addressed. And then I know that, totally different subject, that public utilities right now are required to purchase a certain percentage, and that percentage goes up. I don't know if it goes up every year, but incrementally every so often they have to buy a certain amount of their energy from reclaimed landfill gases like the methane that escapes and they burn off. I wonder if that's been addressed in here. Or does it even enter into the picture for us as residents? I mean, should we care? I guess that's my question. Should we care?
Let me first attempt to address your concerns about solar power and local solar power. I believe a large local solar power system is being installed just to the north of us in Muskegon, and that is a vote by an adjacent utility to say that it is feasible, or they deem it to be feasible to install a solar array pretty much in an area similar to where we live right now. And I would also like to give a nod out to my alternate representative to the committee, Dr. Nicholas Petrangelo, who is quite an authority on solar power, and he has tried to educate me more on solar power. And one of the things he's mentioning is that this is a rapidly growing field where the technology is improving all the time. And I think that will also hopefully address your concerns about existing technology where some of the components may have a lifespan that is makes you give pause that this will have to be replaced at some point. I do have additional information that Dr. Petrangelo has provided that I would be glad to, if you would like some more reading material.
I remember his presentations very well.
And I will just say that I am not really well-versed to address the second question about off gases.
It just occurred to me.
Yeah,
and,
thank you.
If I could, another question on your kind of your introduction. You talk about the three different paths: the good, better, best. And the best includes full electrification of residential buildings. When you say full, do you mean full like power heating and heating of water and all that stuff? Is that what they're looking at? Whereas right now I have a gas-powered furnace. Would that have to become an electric furnace?
It wouldn't have to. A lot of these things are aspirational. Like Ryan said, you have solar panels on the building here. Some individuals have solar powers on their home. Some people are very partial to gas for cooking. I know that's the case in our home, so I may not be on the cutting edge of being an all-electric home. And none of this is mandated. You're trying to, most of all, lead with cutting waste and then electrify whenever possible.
Thank you.
This end has been kind of quiet. Anyone down here have a question before we'll ask anything else?
I guess I just have a comment. Of course, I'm in full support of anything we can do to reduce our carbon footprint. And I think this is a great plan. I think it addresses a lot of our older government buildings that definitely need retrofit, that are just throwing money at waste and energy costs. And I support it fully. So that's all I have to say.
Great. No? Nothing? Okay, go ahead, Will.
Gary, I just wanted to piggyback off what Councilman Kate mentioned. I recognize you say that this is not a requirement to electrify our homes, right? And that's good. I agree with you. But I think it's also important to share that with our residents, because a lot of communities are requiring it, right? And have made commitments to go 100% electric. And in a cold weather state like Michigan, that's not always equitable for some of our low-income families. It's definitely a lot cheaper at this point in time to heat with other sources than electric. Have we looked at, or has BLP analyzed the grid at all, and what capabilities or upgrades they would need to do something like adding renewable power, or I think you mentioned in here having all electric vehicles by a certain date?
The first part of your question about the BLP, I would like to mention to council and to the public that the Board of Light and Power is currently doing a survey for the community, and one of the points that they're asking for feedback on is local solar. It has been suggested that in addition to buying solar from farms throughout the state, maybe we should have some small solar farm locally too, so we have some skin in the game. So I know they're looking, engaging community support for that right at this moment. And I'm sorry, the second part of your question?
Is our grid capable of handling everybody adding electric vehicles? Figure one, I know 2.5 electric vehicles equals a house or something close to that. It's a lot of strain. I didn't know if our system was or will be capable of handling that, or if they have a plan to upgrade it.
I know there have been some concerns about the grid, the Ontario, Michigan grid that we're part of right now, and it featured into the recent resolution by the county commissioners to question whether the Campbell plant should be taken offline as soon. I'll just say some of this is maybe a little over my pay grade. I don't want to say anything is one thing or another. A lot of people are looking at the grid and are concerned that it is robust and has fail-safe features. And I think the Board of Light and Power, from their presentations to us and our work together, there is a general consensus that we're moving in this direction, and all the different moving parts will have to be synchronized so that we can accomplish as much of the goal as we can.
Well, I just want to say this, and these are my last comments, but thank you for all that you do. This is super exciting that Ferrysburg gets to be a part of this. I recognize there's a lot of challenges. If there's anything we can do, I know I've said this previously when you've come in from this council, but if there's educational opportunities that we can do or share with our residents, please let us know. If there's policies and ordinances that you feel would help push this clean energy initiative that we can review or look at and consider, please bring it to us. You've never been shy about sharing with us, and I really appreciate that. But thank you for all the work that you've done and the work Ryan's done.
Thank you very much, Councilman.
Certainly, we appreciate the Cliff Notes version, the 3 or 4 pager, compared to the 200 pager. It made it much more easily for us to digest. And I realize that good, better, best, like at my office, we would consider best to be a stretch goal, and some of it might not be technologically feasible now, but down the road it may be. So I can understand that good, better, best analogy. It's a good thing. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a support on the floor. Can we, you guys ready to take a vote? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Timothy O'Donnell, 540 Ferry Street. I just realized, saw this online the other day and didn't have a good opportunity to go through everything. I do have some concerns, however. When I was attending an MML conference, I had an opportunity to talk to a representative of Governor Whitmer, talking about going totally electric by 2035, with eliminating all the internal combustion engines. Every city representative that was in that room agreed with me and said that's not a good idea. There's too many unknowns. The recycling. A few years ago, they talked about having wind farms. Wind farms sound great. You know, a natural occurring bring us energy. But then they said, okay, what do you do when the windmills wear out after 25 years? looking down the future, right now, I agree. I think we need to look at being energy efficient. We need to be energy efficient. Personally, I do not trust the electric grid. There's too many, it's too wide open. There's too many things that can occur if we do lose electrical power. I just spent $7,000 getting a new furnace, a new water heater put in my house, and both of them are as energy efficient as they currently sell. And asking our residents, our senior citizens that are on limited incomes, to retrofit their houses. Yes, there are grants available, but is this going to be money that they get and do not have to pay back? Or is it a loan? If it's a loan, no. I don't think that we should force our senior citizens to stretch their already limited income. Again, there's too many unknowns. The electric cars. What are we going to do with the electric batteries when they're done? There's an extreme hazard to people for the electric cars. I just went through a course on that, on the electric cars. You know how much water it takes to put out a electric car fire? You can't, because batteries will, you put the fire out and they will reignite. You can take them to the junkyard, they'll reignite. They don't even have to be hooked up. It's a hazard to the environment. There's no way to dispose of them. So I think that's stuff that needs to be addressed. Yes, you can pass it saying, yeah, it's a good initiative, but also, again, please be cautious on what you vote for, because it may lock us into something that later on we can't get out of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none. Craig, could you call roll, please?
Councilmember Murdoch,
Yes.
Councilmember Kate,
No.
Councilmember DeWitt, Councilmember Sterling,
Yes.
Councilmember Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilmember Sias,
Yes.
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
motion passed.
Moving on to 7B, which is discussion to take action if appropriate to approve a recommendation from the Planning Commission to approve a request filed by Todd Camps for a special use permit and site plan approval for condominium of storage units, personal and commercial storage suites, West Shore Engineering and Surveying Project number 3513-0030A, dated March 5th, 2025, sheets 1 and 2, and building drawings on parcel number 700309300073 and parcel 700309300074, commonly known as James E. Court. Greg?
Yes, the developer who developed Channel Side 1, Channel Side 2, and is finishing up Channel Side 3 has submitted drawings for Channel Side 4. This will go on 174th Avenue. One building will be east of the building, Channel Side 3. The other building will be on the opposite side of James E. Court on the north side of that street. Planning Commission has reviewed the drawings. The staff departments have reviewed it. City planner has reviewed it. The city engineer has reviewed it. At the last meeting in March, there were some concerns from those reviews. At that meeting in March, the developer indicated that they would all be satisfied. We're still working with the city engineer on the water main and the hydrant. I talked to the developer today. He indicated that he is going to comply with that. And so Planning Commission made a recommendation to approve a contingent on city engineer staff approval.
Can I get a motion and support on this?
I
please?
move
I'll
for
support.
support.
So before we make a motion on support, so we're gonna get a new drawing with the water main extension and the hydrant. So let's remove date at March 5th, 2025. Everything else would be the same. This is gonna be a different date on the sheet now.
Still
You
make
okay
a
with that?
motion to support?
Yeah, I move to approve the request.
I support.
Your Honor?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Craig, I have some concerns about it. On the very last page of the engineer's report, it says that the following issues remain outstanding: building appearance, landscaping, parking, and lighting. And then, of course, number 5 is approval of all city departments, including city council. Have the first 4 outstanding concerns been addressed?
So the building appearance, the developer requested a waiver and from the stones. So the reason planning commission granted a waiver is the building is gonna look exactly like the Channel Side 3. So we'll match that building. There was a waiver for Channel Side 3, so there'll be a waiver for Channel Side 4. Landscaping, parking, and lighting have all been addressed. We're waiting for the city engineer to finalize his review of the water main and hydrant. And once that's done, it'll be everything completed.
Okay, so it's under scrutiny, it's being looked
Yep.
into, and most of it's being addressed, so.
Correct. Has been addressed or is being addressed.
Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
Your Honor, is there any cost to the city, as far as the water main or hydrant or anything that the developers?
Developer's cost.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I drive by this place every day, and they've done a marvelous job of making it a good-looking facility, and I've got no reason to believe they won't do the same thing with the next set of buildings.
Craig, just a question. Maybe this is for Todd. Just speaking to the lighting, I agree with Councilman Kate. It does look nice. I was under the impression, and maybe I just misheard something, that there would be progressive lighting outside to where it is motion activated and turns off and on and is not on bright 24/7. Seems to be on all the time. That's why I'm asking.
On the inside of the buildings, that's the new electrical code. So the lights on the inside, if someone were to leave at 8 at night and didn't shut their lights off, those will be on for about 15 minutes and then they shut off. The exterior lights, my understanding is we have to have those on.
Okay.
That was a recommendation. So, the exterior lights are on
Okay.
During the evening.
Craig, what's the reasoning behind that? Because we have those in the parking lot here, right? They turn off when there's nobody in the parking lot.
That's correct. We have those here.
So what would be the reasoning to request a commercial space in a residential area have lights on 24/7?
I'm not sure it's a requirement by the city.
Someone requested it.
I don't recall it being requested. I going back to the conversation that was just talked about with energy, I'd be happy to have those lights not stay on, but I don't know what that would take at this point. But we've had the recommendation, the codes call for exterior lighting and then certain type of candle power and the directional down force of those lights, and that's what we've done, and that's what's in the plan.
Yeah, I don't want to sacrifice safety or security, but if there's a way where, as we continue to pop these up, especially in fairly residential areas, if we're able to control that exterior lighting at all, that'd probably be, I'm sure some of the residents would appreciate it. So, especially the ones right next door or across the street.
You can review that with the city planner and developer.
Okay. I'm sure it'd be
Yeah,
cheaper,
it's
cheaper for you in the long run too. So
yeah. So I guess I would I'm just thinking about from a safety standpoint and for security. In a commercial, setting, if it's all dark at night, is it going to be more susceptible to theft?
I know here, as soon as you pull in or you walk across the parking lot, all lights.
Those lights do come on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And
I'm
then
thinking about my
they
office.
slowly dim.
Yeah, my office in downtown Grand Haven, right across from the post office, and those exterior lights are on a timer because when I've been at the office way too late at night, sometimes walk out and the lights are off. But that's, I mean, I'm definitely willing to look at that going forward, but.
Your Honor, Craig, could you have the electrical inspector look at this and see what, accommodation we could make? 'Cause I'm with William, if you have motion detectors, you have security lights. I don't know why we require it to be on all the time.
Yeah, I don't know what it would take to modify that.
Well, if the
Right
electric-
now, I mean, going forward,
Right.
I'd be very open to it.
Right.
Well, it's
I
an
don't-
efficiency, so maybe there's grants.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
be happy to look at it going
Yeah, I
forward,
think the
but,
electrical inspector can, he's also the building, so, he should be able to give you an answer on that.
I'm pretty sure Olympics parking lot lights are on all night long too.
yeah, that's what I think it's a bigger, you know, again, I'm hearing it and, other than working through some of the maybe security concerns, when again, you think about Olympics, right? And if they shut down at 11 at night and those lights are on till 7 AM, it's a lot of energy, but, I think that's probably a conversation with the, you know, the safety department, you know, with the city also.
Yeah, and I mean, these are things back to Gary's presentation, right? These are opportunities as a city that, you know, we can update our policies and requirements now that new technologies are out,
Mhm.
right? When they built the Leppings parking lot, they probably only had the capability of putting in timers, right?
Right.
And to your point, that leaves darkness for a significant amount of time at night where who knows what happens. But as
Right.
technology improves, you've got these progressive lightings with motion detection.
Yeah.
We need to update.
Yeah,
our
I think
stance
looking
accordingly.
at that going forward is not a bad idea.
Anyone else have anything? I do have a couple of questions for,
Go for it.
okay?
You're in
Well,
charge.
I don't, I try to be
got the
at the
gavel,
end
man.
rather than being the first, okay? I always try to go last.
Mike's giving, sounds like Mike gave you the floor.
First and foremost, I would agree with, city council members that have said, complimenting you on it.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Like it. An interesting way to fit in there with the creek and everything else.
Yeah, it's been a bit challenging and,
Yeah.
landscaping now that the weather's breaking, will be coming soon. And,
Certainly.
I think that's gonna look nice too.
Yeah, I did have a couple of questions. That is, we had talked at Planning Commission about the, on the south side of the building, the existing building,
Yes,
facing your neighbor,
yes,
okay? There was a cutout made into that bank.
yes.
Are you planning on putting a retaining wall?
No, there's
Or
not.
is there enough is it back far enough and enough soil that it's not a problem?
Yeah, so I did talk to Schmidt Excavating and to West Shore Engineering about that, and that will be there's fill dirt that's been placed there last fall. They weren't able to cut that to a final grade, and then we've got to have a 2 or 3 foot along edge along the building where we're going to handle water and do some rock.
Yeah.
So that final bank to the south will be part of the landscaping that'll be going on, you know, I hope within the next, you know,
Okay.
2, 3, 4 weeks.
It just looks when I drive by it.
It's unfinished.
It looks unfinished.
It is
and
unfinished,
It looks
yes.
like an erosion problem.
Yeah, no, it is
Okay,
unfinished.
so it's gonna be
Yeah.
addressed.
Yep.
The other concern I have is lighting.
Yep.
Like what Councilman Montgomery was saying. When I drive by there at the evening, it seems like you're lighting up the forest way past the creek. And the reason I mention that is I had an event at
Oh, the
Trillium.
Trillium?
I had an event at Trillium, and I could see the lights. And
So
my
the
concern
can,
is it
it's-
seems like they're out projecting
it's-
out more than down.
it's, again, those are the
Right,
specifications.
and that's what's spec'd, and it
That-
seems like, Craig, the lights
Yeah.
seem to be projecting out a considerable amount. And my concern is that with us potentially approving additional buildings in there, some of which are gonna be facing your neighbors to the south. Is that right?
No.
Okay, good.
Well, let me define that. So the east building will also be north facing.
Okay.
Okay, so that won't
Okay.
push any light to the southern residential. The north building, the northwest building, across James E. Court,
Yep.
those two doors will face the south, but you have our south building in between us and the residential neighbor. So I don't,
Okay,
I don't
well,
think that's an issue. And again, going back to the lighting, I had even suggested early on and asked, could we do to my contractor, electrician, could we go like every other unit, you know, with one of those light packs? Because frankly, it's a cost savings for me. And I, you know, I felt even at Channel Side 2, over by Verplank that, it's
Well,
overlit.
My concern is the light pollution, and when you put more buildings in there, if any of those bulbs are facing that neighbor, if I was them, I'd be screaming.
Yeah,
bloody
so
murder.
again,
Just because there's so much light pollution.
yeah, there's
not
only,
down.
there'll only be the northwest building
Okay.
that will have the two lights facing
Okay.
south, but again, the southern building will be in between there, so I wouldn't expect much
Craig,
there.
that's something that we can look at in terms of getting more down lighting or something like that, or does he just have to go with what's specified?
Channel Side 3 has been approved.
Approved.
We can look at the lighting for Channel Side 4.
Yeah, I don't, we're open, I'm open to that. So if there's a different wall pack, I know that is specified, Craig, and that was in the documents that we provided. So if the city, I'm happy to work with the city staff, and if they're approving of a lesser powerful light or less lights, I'm totally open to that.
Okay?
Yeah, I
Yep.
just want to cut it off. in the
Absolutely.
pass if we can. If you
Sure,
don't mind.
absolutely.
Do we
But
have any other
thank you.
concerns, guys? Lady? Okay, Craig, could you call roll, please, on this?
Councilmember Kate?
Yes.
Councilmember DeWitt?
Yes.
Councilmember Surley?
Yes.
Councilmember Montgomery?
Yes.
Councilmember Sias?
Yes.
Councilmember Murdoch?
Yes.
Mayor Carlson?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Very good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate your time. Moving on to 7C, introduction of ordinance number 335, an ordinance to amend the city code by amending chapter 154 zoning to amend section 3.280 to permit small-scale produce stands in a residential zoning district. Craig, can you bring us up to speed on this, please?
Yes. So there was a city noticed a property owner that was in violation of the zoning ordinance. They appealed that determination to the zoning board of appeals. At that meeting in November, the zoning board of appeals tabled the decision and asked that the planning commission review it. The ordinance seemed like they were wanted to be a compromise to work with the property owner to allow it and still protect the city a little bit. And so the planning commission has looked at it, made some revisions. I met with the property owners. They made some suggestions to the ordinance. We took those suggestions to the planning commission. They were okay with it. There was a couple of tweaks in the ordinance. And at the meeting in March 6th, we had a public hearing on that. There was no public comments, and the planning commission has made a recommendation for city council to adopt the ordinance.
I serve on planning commission, and I thought that we had crafted something that was going to keep the city happy as well as the Larabells. And I was really shocked when I received the email. When did we get that email? Yesterday from the Larabells? Today?
Last night.
Last night. And I'm seeing this in social media about that we have a lot to discuss with city council members. This was posted yesterday, it looks like, on Facebook. And I thought it was all settled at planning commission and that we would just move forward after this first reading. And I'm just concerned that city council, without the aid of the planner here, is not really in a position to be able to craft something that's going to be able to satisfy all the laws and everything that are involved. So I would I'm thinking that we just need to resend this back to planning commission.
City council can do that. We've met with the property owner. The property owner has attended a couple of planning commission meetings, has indicated that they support it, didn't have any concerns with the ordinance. So I'm not sure what changed between the planning commission meeting and last night.
Okay, so before we take public comment or discuss this, could we get a motion on the floor, please? Oh, that's right, we don't have to.
No, you gotta have a consensus for city council to send this back to,
We
make a
can
motion.
just do
on
it by
this.
consensus.
Just have a motion to send this back to the planning
Okay.
commission.
Your
All right,
Honor?
very good.
Would it be possible to hear from the property owners on this?
Yeah. Are they here? Oh,
Nicole Larrabell, 16814 Virginia Avenue.
Jason Larabell, same address.
So basically, the biggest thing in our email was that the violations are about roadside stands, not about small-scale produce. And it wasn't until we got to the ZBA that the small-scale produce sales ordinance was even brought up. But our biggest concern is that we're gonna get a violation and then not be able to operate with this permit. But we have in our email where it's said by the city planner that it could be used as a social use of the property. So we're wondering why we even need to be included in this ordinance. And the city planner was the one who suggested we be included in the ordinance. And we walked in there not thinking that we were going to be included in this ordinance, that free produce would still be able to be handed out. I suggest everybody watch the ZBA meeting where this was discussed. But did everybody have a chance to read the email? Do you have any questions for us?
I do. I've read the email. I've watched the ZBA meeting. I've watched the planning commission meetings that were that addressed this amendment. I guess I'm looking for an explanation as to, I believe this all started kind of in July, the complaint.
Yeah.
And then there was an appeal to the ZBA that occurred in November, all right? And then from November until now, this has been in the planning commission's purview. I've watched some of those meetings. You guys have been in attendance in those meetings. And it seems that the main issue that you have with this is the city asking you to pursue a permit. Am I accurate in that assessment?
Yeah.
So why, between November and the ZBA meeting in March, which is now, why didn't you bring that up to the planning commission?
We've had to watch these meetings numerous times, hours at end. This isn't that easy of a thing for us to figure out. We're not, well versed in the language of all of this. And this has been held for 6 months. And we are just now finding these errors. We still don't know where the zoning board even acknowledged any of our violations. This ordinance we're discussing has nothing to do with any of the violations. So how are we here?
Well, I will say that our community planner, Mr. Jurassic, seems to differ in that opinion.
We have not gotten that answer. We've never gotten that answer. And how does this ordinance that we're discussing, how does that relate to our 5 violations that we received?
I guess, again, my main question is why 24 hours before city council meeting when we're set?
It took us 6
No,
months
can I
to
finish?
figure it
Can
out.
I finish, Skip?
Yep.
Several planning commission meetings have occurred. You guys participated in those meetings.
Yep.
This agenda has been out for nearly a week, city council's agenda. And we weren't notified that you had a problem with it until 24 hours before this meeting. Our city volunteers that are on the planning commission have put time and energy into this to present this to us tonight. And for me, it feels like it would have been fair in the process for you to bring this up to them. Because to me, it's appeared that the planning commission has collaborated with you and worked toward an amicable solution that is good for you guys and good for the city. So I'm very confused as to why 24 hours before our evaluation that we're here hearing your objections. When you were given opportunity to bring these objections up from November until March.
We were not able to find out where the confusion laid. There was confusion from the get-go. You could tell through the zoning board meeting. Nobody knew what we were talking about as far as those violations and how it concerned us. We didn't know. It took us until now and all of these correspondences over and over going through them to figure out where these errors are, where the miscommunication is. We still don't know. And we don't want to sign up for something that could bite us in the ass, excuse my language. But we're not sure. We haven't gotten a direct answer, and I think we're at least entitled to that.
The big thing is none of our scale produce ordinance. Our violations were all for a roadside stand, and that's a completely separate ordinance than the small scale produce.
So why
stands.
wasn't that issue raised over the past 6 months then?
We raised it with the ZBA, and they recommended that we go to the planning commission. And the planning commission didn't talk about including free produce until after the draft had come out. The draft didn't include free produce. And then the city planner said, it's an oversight on my part to not include free produce and that we need to include it so that we can include the Larabells. That was the first time that anybody said we needed a permit to do this, was when the law was changed. So before we didn't need a permit, we appealed that to the ZBA and it's been tabled. We're happy to go back to the ZBA and see if we can get our violations dismissed, but we're also open to the city dismissing the violations because we've proved that we're not a roadside stand, it's small scale produce sales, which is not the ordinance that we were cited on.
I don't believe the city can reverse their determination. I believe now if it were to be reversed, it would be through an appeal process through the ZBA, which you guys have already initiated at one point.
Craig said in an email that it could be dropped by the city if we come into compliance with the small scale produce sales, that the city could drop the violation.
Okay. Craig, is that accurate?
If they comply with the ordinance, the city would drop the violations.
Talking about the current ordinance or?
There is no current.
Currently, the city's position is that they are in violation of the current ordinance. This ordinance has been drafted to help the Larabells comply with the ordinance. If they can comply through a permit process showing everything is met in this ordinance, we would drop the violations.
That's the first time we've heard that.
Is there a current permit for this current ordinance? And if there is, how many people have applied or have them in Ferrysburg for these small produce stands?
We want to note that we did ask for a permit before we got to the planning commission, and it was recommended by Craig that we wait until after the planning commission ordinance was drafted to get the permit.
Okay. You have a problem with that recommendation?
I mean, if I were to get a permit right now, it would be different rules than then, but I just don't understand why we need a permit to hand out free produce when the city planner has said in his emails that there's no commercial activity when neighbors take food for free.
I guess I continue to struggle to understand why tonight is the night that this is brought up and not over the past 6 months. I'm very defensive of our city volunteers and our board members. They volunteer their time, they give their time to the city. From what I've watched in these meetings, they have been very accommodating of your requests the whole way. And now I'm feeling like kind of this combative vibe toward the planning commission, as though maybe they haven't accommodated or that the city hasn't accommodated.
All we're asking for is in the ordinance that the city's proposed to be looking at tonight, you remove free sharing of produce from the ordinance. That's all we're asking, because the city planner has stated in his emails that it's allowed.
Is that correct, Craig?
I have it right here for everybody.
Have you guys had, with the Mr. Jurassic sent us an email this afternoon. Have you guys been made aware of that email or at all?
No.
On page 4, it says vegetable plants are not subject to zoning restrictions unless planters are over 30 inches in height. If there is no commercial activity, I do not see any issue with planting vegetables in pots, having them in a yard, and allowing neighbors and friends to take them for free. This is from David Jurassic to Craig Bessinger. And then Craig sent my neighbor an email, who is the complainant, that said vegetable pots are not subjective to zoning regulations unless the planters are above 30 inches. There is no commercial activity when neighbors take them for free. On the next page, it says, Craig, this falls into a gray area. What they are not doing, or what they are doing, is not a commercial operation, and zoning does not regulate the giving away of produce or anything for that matter. Donations are optional.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Personally, I'd be in favor of sending this back to Planning Commission, giving the Larabells an opportunity to again contribute to the process, trying to amend this ordinance so that all parties are happy. That's where I stand on this.
As I stated earlier, I serve on planning, and I thought we were already at that position, Jake.
Well, maybe one more time.
And you just gave a synopsis of that huge email you gave us, and you brought it down to one sentence, that all you want to have is the words free produce stand. Is that correct?
Yeah, eliminated.
Eliminated.
Yeah.
That's what that email said
I
today.
feel like that's a good show of where this confusion is coming in, is that we're using all of these words for something very simple. There's roadside stand, farm stand, all these words kind of got mixed together when discussing these ordinances with Planning Commission, with Zoning Board. And I think that somewhere along the lines it got lost in translation of what we're actually doing, the violations, and how they line up.
And
Because
so, if we were to say it's a free vegetable stand,
Right,
Craig, how would that affect all the other components of it in terms of parking and whatnot?
we have different ordinances though for roadside stand and farm stand and small produce sales. So those are different things that we're all kind of mixing together here, I think.
So the city's position was that the use was not a permitted use in the residential zone district, and that's why the violations were noticed. And so we worked with the Larabells to come up with an ordinance that would allow for free sharing of produce for certain conditions. And that's what this ordinance is.
Yes.
And now the Larabells don't like the condition.
No, they don't
Correct?
like it.
Is that accurate?
We're afraid that we're gonna get violations of the permit.
So what we talked about at Planning Commission a few weeks ago, now you are looking for something different.
No,
We're
that's not.
asking for one sentence
Yes,
to be
yes,
removed.
You're looking for something different.
We're asking for one sentence to
Okay. Mr. DeWitt, you had something to add?
Yeah, Your Honor. I have an issue with this because, number one, they're doing a good thing. Number two, Craig's gonna be spending all day driving around the city because I'm gonna insist on it that you bust everybody else that has free produce stands. George Dunning, Johnson, there's 6 or 7 on Holiday Hills. Free wood, or, you got wood sales on, Cecilia. You got free produce stand on West Spring Lake Road. And, that's just the ones that come off the top of my head. I will insist that every one of them get a permit if they're selling one hot dog. And you will be spending all day running around enforcing this ordinance. Because if they have to get a permit, everybody else does it, including if you're gonna push it to the logical conclusion here, any kid that gets a lemonade stand is gonna have to get a permit.
I still maintain it needs to get shoved back to planning commission to chew on this. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, I'm just saying, this is a neighbor versus neighbor pissing match.
Yeah.
Exactly what it is. And the city's in the middle of it for no good reason. They're doing a good thing.
The city's in the middle of it because we have ordinances that are supposed to be followed by citizens. And Craig is the code enforcer. Let's not make Craig to be out some bad guy because a resident made a complaint and then he's obligated to follow up on that complaint.
That's
Okay?
correct.
I hear your tone. It's a little combative toward our city manager. I don't appreciate it.
Well,
It is what it is.
It is what it is. You're right.
William?
I don't disagree that a produce stand is a bad thing. I recognize we have to have controls. Let's just send it back to planning commission and get a ordinance that meets the needs of the city. We can take into account other ones around the city as well. Hate to make this more difficult than it is, but I'd be open to send it back and seeing what they can.
Yes.
Nicole, what are you afraid of violating on this new ordinance? I mean, you keep saying you're afraid that you're gonna get a violation.
Mr.
that'll
Cook
exclude
takes
you from
pictures of
permit.
cars parked in front of our house. His wife's taking pictures of my license plate.
Pizza delivery guy.
Pizza delivery
you know,
guy. How is anybody going to
Public access.
differentiate who's a fisherman parking on my lawn illegally? There's no parking signs there. There's no parking signs on Mr. Cook's.
Anywhere.
It's not anywhere in Ferrisburg where there's no parking signs, yet we're supposed to know that you can't park there. And
You're trying to protect yourself.
I'm trying to protect my stand from getting a new violation from somebody that I've seen.
Craig, so one of these that I'm hearing, so correct me if I'm wrong, is your concern around C number 2, no parking shall be permitted on the public right of way. Is that where your concern is?
Yeah, if somebody
So-
were to deliver something to my house.
So how do we enforce that, Craig? Because I can tell you, people park in my yard all the time. So how is this? I mean, how is that an enforceable thing with the city, unless someone has parked there overnight or something like that?
That's correct. You know, when a police officer drives by and sees something parked on the street, if there's an Amazon truck making a delivery is not tying up traffic, they have a little discretion to let it go. If it's in the middle of the street and it's gonna be a traffic hazard from someone coming around the intersection, then they gotta do something about it.
I have a question. Would the Larabells be responsible or would the vehicle owner be responsible?
Vehicle owner.
Okay, so there's no liability for the Larabells. That whoever owns the vehicle is in violation of city code or city ordinance, and then they would be liable, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Does that ease your concerns at all?
It does, but not entirely.
What are your other concerns?
I'm just concerned that my neighbor's gonna come with a violation that doesn't make sense because I have 80 emails from him of him complaining about everything from my legally parked cars, my legally parked truck camper, my legal pergola, trellises.
But if you're not in violation, then there
It's
could be no
taken-
enforcement.
It's taken months for me to bring my proof of insurance to Craig, for instance. How many people have had to do that? I mean,
It's harassment.
All of this
It's harassment at
is
this
work
point.
for us that we have to defend ourselves, basically, you know, and so
We're afraid to
that's-
live in our own house, in our own yard. It's not, than.
This feels like a neighbor problem, and I hate that the
Correct.
city is in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
We
so
wish it
what I'm
wasn't
gonna
that way.
encourage you to do is talk to your neighbor and not talk to city council and try to find a resolution. And swallow your pride and have a conversation with your neighbor.
We didn't
You-
bring these complaints.
You
to you
talk about,
guys.
I know, but you talk about community.
Mhm.
You have a neighbor right next door to you where you can build a bridge, potentially.
I
Mhm.
have a neighbor who contacted my family I asked him not to contacted me. My
What I'm
family
suggesting
after.
is you're gonna have to put all that behind you and find a way forward where you can coexist with your neighbor. Or you have to, or one of you has to leave. I mean,
And we will do that, you know, and we don't need you guys to be mediators for us. We can do that. We're adults, you know, but we have to do that on our time, and we can't let your ordinances be weaponized against us because of his complaints or bitterness against us. And with all due respect to them, you know, we will continue to be respectful to them. And when the time is right, with patience, we can figure this out. And, you know, it's not like we're trying to say this guy's the bad guy and that's the only reason why we're here.
but
you
until then, do your due diligence and make sure you're not violating, don't give them anything
That's
to
what
make
we
a
have been
complaint.
doing. Thanks.
You know, listen, I don't have no problem with what you guys are doing. I think, you know, it's a noble cause, really. But, for the city to be involved in this, I think is just
We don't want the
crazy.
city involved in handing out free vegetables.
Not at all.
It's handing out free vegetables on a table. If I remove the sign, am I okay? If I put the vegetables on the ground, am I okay?
I understand that they're free, but free doesn't exclude you from regulation. It doesn't.
The
There are-
sharing, is that something that
When-
we as a community want to?
we have an ordinance about
encourage?
sharing boxes in Ferrisburg as well. Do you
We
want
don't-
do you
We
want
don't
do
have
you
a
want to
We don't
adhere
have
to
a
that?
sidewalk. We already looked. We did our due diligence looking into that because that was an option that we wanted to consider.
And I'd
Honor?
like to note that sharing boxes are in the city that don't have signs.
I think this is ridiculous, all of it, every bit of it. All they're doing is giving away free produce. I have personally come and got tomatoes and green peppers. Thank you. It's stupid. And it shouldn't be allowed, and it shouldn't be allowed that their neighbor is doing this to them.
And-
This is harassment. It's terrible.
I'll take the other side for a moment, and that is, I live up on a Hiawatha. Let's say I have a neighbor, and it's a nice quiet residential neighborhood. What do I do if I have a neighbor that's suddenly doing what they're doing? And I've got all these people now driving into my neighborhood to come to that.
I live on a cul-de-sac
So that's
in
the
Harbor
issue.
Point in a very nice neighborhood. My next door neighbor gave swim lessons every summer for 5 years, and she charged and used my parking and blocked my driveway and blocked my mailbox, and I let it go. I just let it go. And that's what I told Mr. Cook, let it go.
Be against the ordinance.
It is, but so what? We gotta live together.
In fact, do we have ordinances though, that everybody has some predictability when they buy a home in a residential area? What are my neighbors allowed to do that could potentially negatively or positively affect the value of my property and my pursuit of happiness?
I wish they'd come
So-
and live next to me.
That's how the city gets
I would
involved.
love it.
I don't think any
There's
of
a
us are.
house for sale next to me.
Debbie, I don't think anybody here is any of the council members or anybody even in attendance would say what they're doing is a bad thing. Great, it's tremendously altruistic. But
What else can you do for them, Fred?
Be glad to meet with them again.
I mean, is there a way to just make some ordinance that says it's a free produce stand and that's okay?
They're asking for that not to be included in the wording of this.
They don't want a sales stand, and I get that, because you're not selling things. You're just giving. So it would have to be something you're giving it.
is the general consensus that council would be satisfied by sending this back to the planning commission?
Can I ask one question more? If this does go back to the planning commission, is there anything that can be done between you guys and the planning commission to find a resolution that you're happy moving? Is,
Yeah, as
is
lo-
sending this back to planning commission a moot point? That's why I asked, because I don't want to waste planning commission's time any more further with this. So
a
do you,
good
do you
question.
think that there's a resolution that can be found working with the planning commission?
I think the resolution that can be found is just the free distribution sharing from the.
Okay, so maybe you should talk with city staff and we can come to some resolution if it's gotta go back to planning commission or if we're at an impasse.
Craig,
We'll
Is
take
that
it back to-
doable, Craig?
We'll take it back to the planning commission too, also.
Craig,
Okay.
if we remove free produce, then it's not gonna fall under this section. Will they be in violation of something?
If they're giving it away.
Let me review with the planner.
I just wanna
How
make
would
sure
we get,
there's
we
no-
wouldn't have been in violation to begin with then, because right now it doesn't say free produce. And we were told that the problem was that we were giving away other neighbors' vegetables in that ordinance where it states that you can only give away the stuff that you grow.
Yeah.
So that, we thought that we were good, aside from giving away the neighbor's produce. So I don't understand how adding us to this ordinance has anything to do with those violations still.
Very good. So Craig, the way we're gonna sit is, the Larabels can get a hold of you and we're gonna take this back to the planning commission?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, very good. Moving on to 7D. Introduction of ordinance number 336, an ordinance to consider amendment to zoning ordinance, section 7.70, district sign regulations.
Last November, during election season, we received comments from residents that wish to have more than the permitted 2 signs during election season. That time, city council paused enforcement on the number of signs someone could have on a property. Asked the planning commission to look at it. Planning commission has looked at the amendment and, the sign ordinance has proposed an amendment to allow unlimited signs during election season 30 days before election. And the signs can be 2 feet from the property lines and 5 feet from, the side property lines and 5 feet from, the right of way.
I'd entertain a motion.
This is a first reading.
Oh, first reading, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Craig, what is the thought behind reducing it from 45 to 30 days and from 10 days after, 7 days after?
Just tighten it up a little bit, the number of signs.
And actually, we had city staff look at what neighboring communities are doing. Isn't that right, Craig?
Yes, we did.
And this fits what's happening in the Tri-Cities area. And still allows people good First Amendment.
It looks very similar to our neighbors'
Yes,
ordinances.
yes,
Your Honor.
yes.
I have a couple questions. On the bottom of the amendment, I guess, it says other off-site commercial advertisement, temporary yard signs are prohibited. Does that include like construction company signs, like roofing companies that put a temporary sign out? We saying those are
If
no
someone
longer
has
permitted?
if someone has a permit, they can have a construction sign out.
Okay, oh, okay, so they would have to have a permit and then
Correct.
they're allowed to do that? Okay, okay. Another thing, with size, I'm questioning, we wanna allow banners along with that, or?
This is
Talked
just for
about that.
temporary signs, 2 square feet, 2 by 3.
Okay, so, okay.
Jerry, we
banners are
talked
kinda-
about that at planning commission.
Okay.
And we decided that normal yard signs, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, would suffice in residential areas.
Okay.
Rather than ban.
Because I know banners have come up in the past and in discussion during elections, so, okay, I was just wanted to make sure that was all.
Your Honor,
Yes.
we have an ordinance that regulates banners right now, right?
Correct.
Any other questions for staff? No, seeing none. Let's move on. 7E, discussion to take action if appropriate to appoint, I don't know how to pronounce Kristen's last name, to the Beautification Commission for
Grace,
the term
Grace?
ending July
Yeah.
1st, 2027. Craig, could you pronounce that name for me, please?
No.
Thank
It's
you.
Grace.
Motion to approve.
Yes. Support.
Great ski, okay, very good. Motion and support on the floor. Any discussion?
Oh, she's great.
Seeing none?
Yeah, I have a quick
Oh,
question.
go ahead.
I'm assuming you interviewed her and you're satisfied?
I have not personally, no.
No, I'm not talking to
She
you.
was at our meeting.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah. Anyone else? Hearing none, Craig?
Councilmember DeWitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Sturley,
Yes.
Councilmember Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilmember Size,
Yes.
Councilmember Murdoch,
Yes.
Councilmember Kate,
Yes.
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
motion passed.
Very good. Moving on, I'm glad to see.
Oh,
It's
yes.
wonderful.
Yes.
Moving on to 7F, work session on the ethics ordinance.
We have somebody.
Oh, okay, very good.
It's
This-
been hours.
This is a work session, so
Now
we
it's
don't.
okay?
Craig, what is our normal procedure for work sessions had in the past?
During a work session, in the past practice, city council has not taken comments.
Okay. This is a work session.
Don't allow me to?
No, not in a work session. You can
We
speak
always have
afterwards.
before.
No. Did you just hear what the city manager said?
All right, well, I'll make my comments at the end then.
Craig, you want to bring us up to speed in the ethics ordinance, please?
So back in 2023, city council adopted an ethics ordinance. Since that time, there has been a number of complaints filed using the ethics ordinance. Those complaints have been turned over to the city attorney for review. Those all have been found to be not valid complaints. And so there's been some discussion on, by city council, if there should be something tweaked in the ordinance that if a complaint ordinance is filed and is not valid, that the person that filed the complaint would pay for the attorney fees to review that. The other option would be to get rid of the ordinance.
Your Honor?
Brooke, that is something that in a letter to city council, you had stated that you could get rid of the ordinance as well.
Yeah. So the ordinance, I think, has been there's a lot of statements in the ordinance about how to act, but the prohibition section of the ordinance is very specific as to what it covers, what is prohibited by the ordinance. And what's prohibited by the ordinance is primarily conflict of interest, using your position to profit or to benefit. Those are the prohibitions. What has primarily been brought as ethics complaints have been, I don't like how somebody addressed me. I don't like how somebody talked to me. I don't like how a council member or commission member interacted with me. And those are not prohibitions in the ordinance. And they tend to border on, regulation of free speech. If we were to cite a commission member or council member for what they said to somebody. So you're in a position where the complaints have been primarily people don't like each other, as opposed to somebody really committed an ethics violation that needs to be addressed. Like they have a conflict of interest that they're not disclosing, and that should be addressed, or they're using their position in a way that is bringing them a benefit that should not have been used. Not, I don't like that a person told me to sit down and shut up, which is entirely unkind, obviously, but it's not what this ordinance was intended to cover. So I think it creates some confusion because in the first part of it, it talks about addressing people respectfully and all these things, and it talks about the way you should act as a member of council or an employee of the city or a commission member. But when you get to the prohibitions, it's not a prohibition. It's just kind of a guideline. So there's a confusion there when a citizen reads something in an ordinance, but then it's not considered a prohibition. And then they file the complaint, and then we consistently come back and say, well, that isn't addressed in this section. This section is what is a violation of the ordinance. And it costs the city money to do that. So one of the options is to just repeal the ordinance. And there was a suggestion about paying attorney fees if your violation was not substantiated. I do think an argument could be made that that chills free speech, and that does, punish somebody's free speech. So I do think there is some argument that can be made for that by some attorneys or some citizens. So, I think repealing it or maybe educating the public on what is an actual prohibition under this ordinance as opposed to what is like, hey, how you should really conduct yourself might be of benefit if you're going to keep the ordinance.
Yeah. Mr. DeWitt, you had a comment.
I have a comment. I don't think it's right that a citizen makes a complaint, you review it as an employee of the city. If I do something, whatever, I don't know how to say this politely. I think you got a conflict of interest. Listen.
I would agree with you. It's a hard situation for the city attorney to be in. I agree with you.
So therefore, if there's an ethics violation or ethics complaint, it should go to a third-party attorney because you have to defend us and city commissioners or whatever against the complaint, correct?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, but it kind of puts me in a position where I can't in that situation because I've already been like the judge to a certain extent on it.
So if we're gonna keep the ordinance, any complaint that's filed should go to a third-party attorney, whoever, we can name whoever we want, but I think it's a complete conflict of interest that you have to defend me and you're gonna rule on whether or not I actually did a violation.
Yeah,
You
and
understand what
this
I'm
was
saying?
modeled off of other municipalities' ethics ordinances. This wasn't one we just developed out of thin air. But once there's a difference between how it's written and then how it actually practically works. And I think that's where some of the issues have come up is like in all practicality, it's a little
worthless.
cumbersome.
It's worthless.
I mean, it's not necessarily worthless, but you could find a violation. But like you're saying, with my responsibility to represent the council, if some member is using it for their own personal benefit, I would have to call that out, and then I would have to be conflicted out in defending that individual if somebody pressed it forward.
Craig, one of those ethics violations, we did not have Brooke handle.
That's correct.
What was the reasoning behind that?
The city attorney was involved in that. He was involved in the complaint. That's why I went to the third party.
So we had to go to an outside party.
Correct.
Was it extremely complicated ethics violation? The reason I ask is just because of the sheer cost difference.
It takes a third party a little bit of time to get up to speed on what happened.
Yes.
Who's involved.
That's the benefit of going with our staff attorney or our contracted.
Well, that's a clear-cut conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you had any, I hate to say it, but I don't see how you can legally make a decision and then defend us also. I don't think it's.
Well, I'd have to step out and not do it once that decision was made. So.
Your Honor. Plus,
Your Honor?
that kind of defeats what we're trying to do here is save money because of the cost of the ethics complaint. If we gotta hire an outside attorney, now we're paying two attorneys, we're paying a city attorney and an outside attorney.
It's more than
And it's
just the
gonna
cost, it's the
cut-
fact that we've had the ethics ordinance, there have not been any violations, and it's extremely stressful for all the volunteers of the city when they get hit with these things for something that isn't law-breaking, right? No laws have been broken, didn't involve law enforcement or the attorney general or anything.
Your Honor, can I say
Name
something quick a minute?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm in favor of abolishing it. I gotta
Okay.
make a quick trip here.
Oh,
Your Honor, I feel that complaints that you've had to look at have been used as weapons to hurt somebody here. It's just pettiness, and it shouldn't be allowed to cost the city that kind of attorney fees for these kind of silly things. It's like children. Ridiculous.
Your Honor.
yes.
Brooke, you mentioned in your email about recouping costs, and you just said for unsubstantiated claims. From a legal perspective, is there any delineation between an unsubstantiated claim and a frivolous?
In the court of law, yes. I mean, there's not anything delineated in the ordinance, but yes, if you file a lawsuit in circuit court and there is no basis in fact or law for the decision, the judge can order you to pay the other side's costs and attorney fees.
Yeah,
Now, that is delineated by statute. But here, I know Ms. Hopp had talked about, well, it's got to be justified by contract or statute, or, I mean, here's an ordinance that says it. So, I mean, one could argue it's chilling and violates free speech, but the circuit court does it all the time.
Yeah, my concern is we have had some that had supporting evidence, but were found to be not of ethical nature. And we were told this was probably not a good thing to do, but it wasn't unethical, right? But then there's others that are probably just frivolous, right? And is that something we're even able to delineate
You
between?
know, I think that, I don't know if any of them would I say were frivolous. I think all of them kind of like had talked about things that, you know, being courteous and being kind to your constituents. I mean, that is talked about in the ordinance. It just wasn't a prohibited action. So, I mean, I thinking back now, I can't think of any that what I would say were frivolous, like completely made up. Like, hey, that person never even said that, and you just came here and said that they did this.
Sure,
that's frivolous.
Okay.
So I think there is a fine line between frivolous and unsubstantiated, but it's a pretty high level in court, you know, in a court proceeding to say something's frivolous.
Sure.
But yeah, you could potentially look at some of them and be like, yeah, that was closer to frivolous. But again, it's a judgment call.
It's subjective. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
What's your recommendation for us going forward?
I think you have to either repeal it or you do a major campaign to say like this is not what this ethics ordinance is for. It's not for, I don't like what that person said to me.
I
or
think
how they
everybody
talked to me.
knows what it's for, but that doesn't.
Then it would be to repeal it. I think one of the hardest things has been we tried to take the pressure off of Craig in making these decisions about what was an ethics violation, and council at that time put it on city attorney. And then I think we've seen where that problems that creates too.
Yeah,
And
it's all
having-
about accountability for our public officials. Right?
It
Where-
is. And there are other ways to go about that. I mean, there's statutes, you know, there's fiduciary responsibilities of this council and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think there's an ethic, it has to be under the ethics ordinance, but it's, I think this one has proved to be a little bit more problematic than it has beneficial.
When we tried to do it, we thought we were doing a good thing, but I think we've made a big mistake.
So conceivably, city council could down the road move to abolish it and potentially send it back to planning commission for review. Is that right?
I don't think it goes to planning commission. This is a city ordinance. This is a
City council's got to work on ethics, not planning?
I don't think it's a planning commission.
Correct. It's city council.
What's the process for that?
To repeal it or to work on it?
Yes.
We would draft an ordinance repealing this ordinance.
And you have to vote on it
As
Well,
a council or as a city?
as a council.
We've heard of 3 people here so far that are in favor of repealing. Myself
Yeah.
included, Debbie. Yes, Jerry.
Can I say something?
Of course.
I think when we created this, we wanted to create an outlet for citizens to go to hold their council members accountable. And I think that was the main thought behind the ethic ordinance. And as time has shown, we've kind of complicated what are violations of the charter and what is ethical, and we expect our city attorney to make those decisions. What is a violation of the charter should still be handled by the city attorney and should still have a way for the citizens to file that complaint. If we abolish or repeal this ordinance, will the citizens still have an outlet to file their complaints?
Based upon a charter violation by a
Right.
council member?
Yes.
There's always the route of the attorney general, and a violation by a member of something that has been done as like in the public office. So I haven't looked at your question in regard to our code itself, so I can't answer that right now, but I can get back to that on you. This was more from the ethics ordinance violation standpoint, so I could look into that for you to make sure. I'm sure there is in our city charter.
Because I feel we still need a forum or an outlet for citizens to file their complaints with city council through local enforcement rather than having to go to Lansing or the attorney general. I mean, that's just.
Yeah.
There are mechanisms to hold public officials accountable at the ballot box and through a recall vote. So
Well,
it's not like there aren't ways to hold public officials accountable.
yeah, but that's not always played out that way,
But
unfortunately.
the way it's been being used as a club to control things they don't like.
Yeah.
That's not what the ethics ordinance.
No.
So it's being used wrong.
I agree,
So
I
we need to
agree.
get rid of it.
Well, maybe we don't necessarily have to get rid of it. Maybe we can fix it. Maybe we can improve it. What if we created an ethics committee to review these complaints before they go to the city attorney? A 3-person panel committee that would review it and say, this is a complaint that holds no water, or this is an ethics complaint that, needs to be looked at further.
I mean, I do think the ethics ordinance outlines some specific actions in the prohibition section that if it was found that a city official did, it is a good thing to hold a city official accountable for. The problem, though, is all the language prior to it that talks about how to conduct yourself, people read that as thinking that's a violation when it's not. So I think that's where we're getting I think that's where we have the disconnect.
Your Honor?
Yes.
What our city attorney is saying is, I think we should all take it very seriously, and we should think about rewriting the ordinance. I don't want to get rid of it. We need something that protects the city from someone using his or her position for personal gain. And that's what it's for, correct? Perhaps we need to look at revising it to somehow eliminate the possibility of all that little nitpicky personal vendetta stuff being allowed to come to our attention in the first place. Because in the almost 4 years I've sat here, every one of them that comes up is for some personal nitpicky little thing that person A didn't like about what person B said. And I say, well, you know, that's life.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Quick question, Brooke. Your contention is that the final part of the ethics ordinance, you know, malfeasance in office, I'm profiting from whatever. A citizen can file a legal complaint with the prosecuting attorney, correct?
Yeah, I don't know all the different ways that they could do it, but that is like, yeah, misuse of office,
Well,
yes.
if Mr. Carlson, not to pick on you, is getting a kickback from a road project, that's a crime.
Yeah.
So why do we need
Yes.
this ordinance anyway?
I think what they were trying to do is control at the local level as opposed to having to go spend money or try to get a prosecutor to do it. I mean,
If
think
it's a
that was
legitimate claim, the prosecutor's gonna take the case.
true,
If it's not, he's gonna
Maybe.
throw it out.
maybe.
So
Hey.
my, you know, to Mr. Kate's statement, there are remedies outside of the city council getting involved.
Correct.
You
There
know,
is.
I mean, if I come to you with a specific crime that Bill did in the performance of his office, you have to investigate it, and you would have to prosecute it or take it to the prosecutor, correct?
If you came to me with it,
If I came to you and said that Mr. Kate was taking a kickback for whatever,
like yeah, because I represent the city, yes.
so then there are remedies for what this was intended to do, but it just got too wordy in the beginning of the.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where it got confusing was all the information at the beginning about how you should conduct yourself as a city council or a board member. People took that as, hey, it says right here you shouldn't do that, but it wasn't in the prohibition section, so they brought forth in that
All right.
section.
So from what I'm hearing, your recommendation would be just abolish it?
I would get rid of it, or I'd rewrite it so that it's very, very clear that these are the avenues, and then you're probably best getting somebody else to review it that's not the city attorney because of the conflicts that could potentially create.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And if we go to someone besides the city attorney, the cost is dramatically different.
My billing is a little bit different than most billings around here.
Dramatically different. And then that brings forth the who's gonna pay issue.
Yeah, and I don't, and one could argue that you're chilling speech and you're creating a situation, but circuit courts do it. They make judgments as to what's frivolous, and they award costs and attorney fees. So that's a governmental organization doing it. So I think there's an argument that can be made that you can still do it, but it will definitely create somewhat of a chilling effect on people making complaints. Especially if it's more than an hour's worth of time that it's taken to conduct it. If a firm goes and spends 10 hours investigating it, you're gonna pay.
And that's what we're trying to eliminate, is all that extra cost.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I still feel that an ethics committee can eliminate all those issues. I don't feel like we need to abolish or repeal the whole ordinance. I think we need to create a committee that can review these, a competent committee that can understand and read the charter and the language and start there, and then try that before we just abolish the whole ordinance.
Your Honor?
Yes.
So ideally, I think what you just said, Jerry, would be how this would work the best. I think it would be a real challenge to find people that are not associated with the city, that are seemingly unbiased to serve on that. I think
I'm
that's
not
the
saying
challenge.
necessarily unassociated. I'm not, we could have citizens on the committee. Just independent thinking, competent people that will be approved by the board or the city council to, review these complaints before we send them to the attorney. Cold water in it.
It's my personal opinion that it would be difficult to fill a committee like that. Again,
Well, that's
my opinion.
speculation. I mean.
I
that's
said it's my
spec-
opinion,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
Okay.
I
That's
know.
my opinion.
And where does it go after somebody has been found of a violation? Is there a penalty? Or
Well,
is
if
it
it's a
just taken-
charter, if it's against the charter, we would leave that up to the city attorney, and then the city council also has, ways to deal with that as well.
The city attorney is saying
Impose
he'd rather have it go to outside counsel. Craig, can I share figures as to what this costs thus far a little bit?
It's public knowledge.
Is that all right? Okay. Just so we all are understanding, most of these ethics complaints have cost anywhere from $150 to $480 apiece. Okay? We have one that went to outside counsel for over $8,000 that we paid. 8,000. Okay? So if we're gonna be going to outside counsel, this is why when we talk about who's paying for it, it's a big deal. If someone is filing frivolous claims, who is paying? Who's on the hook for it? This is what the city citizens have been paying for. And with no result over, how many claims have we had, Craig? 9 ethics violations thus far?
8 or 9, yes.
8 or 9?
The taxpayer.
Mr. DeWitt?
That has a real chilling effect on me to say that if I file a complaint against you, for instance, that in my mind, there was a violation, or I wouldn't have filed it. So now you're gonna hit me with lawyer fees. I don't know if that would even be, I'm not sure it'd even be held up in court, would it, Brooke?
I think it depends on what the ordinance says, because we don't have the language in the ordinance now, and whether that would be considered something that's in line with what this circuit court already does and district court already does, that says if it's frivolous, no basis in fact or law. Now, to get to that level is pretty high. So, I mean, whether you're going to even be able to hit somebody with frivolous claims, if it's a true statement that, like the allegation was, it just doesn't rise to the level of fact of like meeting the ordinance, probably isn't frivolous. So to even get an award of that, it might be hard to do.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's clear that we have, like, basically it's a binary choice here. We either revise this ethics ordinance, clearly define what is and is not an ethics violation, and then we have to find an unbiased third party to evaluate those complaints. Brooke can't do it anymore. Let's be honest. It's a complete conflict of interest for our city attorney to be evaluating this. So if we're to move forward with this, that's what it has to look like. The alternative is to abolish it. So we know what our choices are as city council. It's either revise it, make it clear what is and is not a violation, and then we have to establish an unbiased third party to evaluate these, or it's abolish it.
Does anyone have any other questions since we have Brooke here regarding this, or?
One quick question. I don't believe any of this is covered in the city charter itself, is it, Craig?
Conflict of interest is, but nothing else for ethics, no.
So to Jerry's point, if we had a citizens committee, did you violate the charter? No, you didn't, because it ain't in the charter. You know what I'm saying, Jerry?
Right.
So without the ethics ordinance is what you're actually violating, not necessarily the city charter unless it's criminal. You see where I'm going with that? And you remove everything. Yeah, I still think I'm in favor of that. Because if there's criminal conduct, which basically what Brooke is telling us, it has to be criminal conduct to an extent to be a violation of the ethics ordinance.
Well, I mean, let's just go back. I mean, this was enacted in 2023. The city operated
Right.
prior to 2023 with no ethics ordinance, and there wasn't corruption running amok. And there were ways to deal with corruption if it happened or criminal activity if it happened. this is a very relatively new ethics ordinance in the grand scheme of things. So I do think there are other mechanisms there to handle it. This is more, I think, was trying to be taken care of on a local in-house level as opposed to prosecutor, like all the other stuff. So that's, I think that was potentially the intent of it.
We can address this at a next agenda item, correct? Next meeting?
Well, we could have consensus tonight on which way you guys want to move.
Oh, we can do that tonight?
Give me direction if you were interested in.
I don't think we can vote tonight, right?
No vote.
Okay.
You want to put it on the agenda for a vote to?
Yes.
Okay. You can do that.
Whatever you do.
Okay. Very good. Moving on to, what is that? Number 1 there, work session, city budget. Craig, do you have to deal with this tonight, or can we postpone it, table it?
We can do it at the next meeting.
Can we? You're comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll do it twice next month.
Okay. Good. Do we need a motion on that? No? Okay, let's table. Okay, now's the time for any public comments. Regina. Ready.
Regina Schoberg, 17542B Parkwood Drive. I think the problem with the ethics ordinance, there was a real problem with ethics before 2023 when a city councilwoman tried to sell the nature preserve, met with the developer in his offices, and when council was to address it based on citizen outcry, the people that council just didn't show up. We didn't have a quorum, so it can never be discussed again. So there was a problem in the past. I agree with Kate and Mr. Sias that you need to have some kind of an ethics ordinance. The problem here is, I think there are 2 issues. Number 1, you need to look at, whenever you refer something to the city attorney, it's going to cost money. I understand that's a problem, but what price honor? If you have someone that comes before you and slanders and lies and attacks, I bet about 8 of those complaints were against me, and most of them were BS, I guarantee you, and I am tired of it. The first thing you have to do is screen the things that are specious, things that are frivolous. Frivolous cases are lacking merit or legal basis, filed to harass, annoy, intimidate, or embarrass another party. The second issue you have to look at is you have to have some kind of a repercussion when people lie in an ethics ordinance. It says right under the complainant's signature on an ethics ordinance complaint, if you are lying, you are liable for a $500 fine. You ought to put some teeth into that. What I would suggest you do, I think you need an ethics ordinance. Most everybody's got one somewhere or the other. You have to, number 1, have an ad hoc committee review what should be done. You can look at the Michigan Municipal League, has a whole guide to ethics ordinances, and also there's a state Michigan model ethic ordinance guideline book that you can look at as well. Allowing people to use the ethics ordinance nefariously could put you in some legal problem. That's per my attorney. And I can tell you, if you're trying to rely on going to the state attorney generals, my case against Lions and the Friends of Ferrysburg has been referred there. It's been there since August. I've had 2 attorneys check. I've filed every day. I call myself, and it's going through the process. So you're never going to get an answer for them in a quick manner. I think that these attacks that people are putting on people that are just trying to serve the city make people afraid to serve. And you have to have some way to field this judiciously and fairly, because, the future is longer than the past. It may cost some money now to get this in order and build a bedrock for some future so we have an ethical, transparent city. The best legacy I think you can give this city is to do away with all this drama and continue your excellent efforts to bring civil, productive government to Ferrysburg now and in the future, and that means you need to have some kind of ethical standard.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to make two comments. Listening to your work session tonight, I kind of agree with what Councilman Kate was saying. I think the optics of council voting to abolish an ethics ordinance, just, you need to put a mirror up and ask yourself, how is that going to look? I hear that you're saying it's been misused, and I guess my comment might be is maybe to remove, to review it, amend it, but remove the whole business of reviewing these complaints to an outside party and just make it a educational statement. These are what we aspire to, these are what we expect people to, but remove, you know, as different people have said, you know, if there is a crime, there are avenues to pursue, and maybe if you just took that out and just put in a, you know, kind of a, here's what we aspire to be as public servants, and, you know, here's things that are obvious we shouldn't do, but part of the problem might be that you're trying to duplicate other laws that are on the books, and it's, from what I'm hearing, it's being misused for inappropriate complaints. So that would be my comment to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Rebecca, you're up. Come on.
Tim O'Donnell, 540 Ferry Street. Listen, on the, I was on the council when the ethics committee, or the ethics ordinance was brought into effect. And a lot of what's discussed tonight was discussed then. And I'd like to just point out that it is correct. There are already laws on the books and even in our charter on dealing with unethical and unlawful conduct. And so an ethics committee, and ethics committees, if you look at the results in other cities, they don't work. It actually causes more problems than because as Councilmember Sterling said, it'd be hard to find somebody that's unbiased and does not know what's going on in the city. And to find a committee that could do that, it's the same as trying to find a unbiased jury in a trial. So I would just support the going with what's already on the books. Malfeasance, misfeasance, all those are already criminal statutes, and I just encourage people to, if there is a problem, go that route. It's less headache for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the public comments. City manager report?
No report.
Very good. Who would like to go first?
No report.
No report?
No report.
Rec commission meeting this week, and I will be gone for the next meeting. Disneyland.
Disneyland, wonderful. Congrats. Okay. Any report?
I have no report.
Very good. Guys?
No report.
Very good.
Well, we have a new member at the beautification committee, and
That's
we're very happy about that. We're in the process of planning great hunt at 11 o'clock. Already have the eggs in-house. The week before to sort them and get ready. I've informed the women that Mr. is going to bounce house for the July picnic, but he was very happy to hear that. Yeah. And so we are moving forward planning that. We still haven't got some of our things in place for the picnic, but we're working on it. We were looking for a recruitment office. I thought there was one in Muskegon, but they're not. They're up in Sherman. We want to find somebody to Grand Marshal.
They are on Sherman.
Yes, I know, and
They're by Walmart.
I think that's too far. I don't think they would be interested. Yeah.
I can help you.
Would you? Because that's what, where Candy drove all over Creation. And nothing close. Although the Coast Guard does have a recruitment office at Haven. But we were hoping to get some like equipment in the parade too. So.
Like a howitzer?
Something.
Like a tank, I
A
think.
tank or something.
Recruiters don't have equipment.
Nope,
Yeah,
no.
they got a desk.
Debbie,
I can help you.
may I intervene?
You can have, okay.
I talked to Candy and I belong to the
Yeah.
National Guard unit up in Montague.
Yeah.
And I was gonna speak to them about,
Okay.
joining our
Because she
parade.
thought that was too far.
Yeah, well, not necessarily. They do parades all over, travel all.
Because we need that.
Your Honor,
And I'd be willing to check with
perhaps you could talk to, maybe Tim could get involved with the Coast Guard Reserve, have them, put like a, boat, what do they call that, patrol boat or something in the parade. So, maybe Tim could, meet with beautification and try to work on that.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
something
we're
like that.
really, not sure how to go about this.
I'm sure he knows. Tim knows everybody at the Coast Guard, so. You just lasso him and tie him down and say, hey, we need help.
I'll
Yep.
stick candy on you.
You have people to reach out to. You have anything else?
No, we're just
Okay.
we're gonna have the Easter egg hunt and then we're.
Wonderful. The only thing I have from the mayor's standpoint is I did receive an email 2 or 3 days ago from a resident in Robinson Township with the last name of Montgomery, and they made it known that they were not related to William, congratulating us on the tree, that the star is still on the tree they're noticing. Craig. Our star is still on the tree. But they said it's just the grandest tree in the whole area. Spectacular. Thank us. End of report.
Motion adjourned.
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
Actually, it's still the wrong day. I think it's the 5th.
It's the 6th.
Oh, is it the 6th?
The
Okay.
month is the 5th.
Okay, gotcha.
I double checked. I went on
Okay.
the county website twice. Yes. I was wondering why we had